Kyle asked, what are your thoughts on nose breathing during monostructural endurance training? So I think this is a little bit of a loaded question, considering how talked about this has been recently in kind of the CrossFit realm and the training front as a whole. So I don't think this is something that's good or bad. I think it would be wrong to demonize it, but I also think it's wrong to say everyone should be doing this. I think times when it's appropriate are for endurance athletes that might be asthmatic, athletes with low CO2 tolerance, or athletes who are very trap dominant. The reason for that is that work is going to sensitize you to carbon dioxide. It's great for long and slow endurance athletes, general population athletes, or people with asthma. But I see this recommended for elite CrossFit athletes all the time, and I don't think this is a great idea. You see a lot of them recommending or saying that it improves their performance, but I don't necessarily think that means it is the optimal strategy. I liken it to, if someone is addicted to hitting themselves in the face with a hammer every day and you replace that hammer with a banana, yes, it's better, but they're still hitting themselves in the face and they're not doing themselves justice. The other people that I've seen in the market claiming that it improves their performance, it's generally in times that, not to be offensive, aren't very impressive. So I think there's little evidence that this actually improves high-level performance past a baseline. The reason for this is that if you sensitize an athlete that already has high CO2 tolerance, mind you, this would be CrossFit athletes, I have the actual physiological testing data to show this is the case. What you could often do is dismantle their carbonic drive by improving their CO tolerance too much. So when we're doing a hard workout, sorry, I'm coughing, my throat's a little dry. When we're doing a hard workout, what triggers us to respire and hyperventilate is a buildup in carbon dioxide, and that's called the carbonic drive. When you expose someone to high CO2 chronically, which is the case with a lot of these CrossFit athletes that end up doing a lot of nasal breathing or doing things like Wim Hof or a lot of hypoxic breathing protocols, is you essentially desensitize them to CO2. So what happens is when CO2 builds up in these workouts, their carbonic drive does not trigger, and as a result, they don't hyperventilate to breathe off that excess CO2. As a result, what happens is they keep going and they keep going until they start peripherally desaturating oxygen, which means the amount of O2 to their brain is going down. When that gets to a certain point, the hypoxic drive is going to trigger as a means to preserve oxygen to the brain and keep them conscious. If that's happening to an athlete on a regular basis, that's going to create a dysfunctional respiratory drive, and that's going to have a lot of implications on how they adapt to training, which is, quite frankly, going to create a lot of negatives that might take weeks to months for them to undo. So my thoughts on breath training during monostructural exercise, or nasal breathing during monostructural exercise, could be fantastic for some people and could have a lot of applications for them, could be absolutely terrible for other people. I think this comes down to know who you are and if you're someone that could benefit from it, and don't adhere to some dogmatic thing. If someone's saying that a protocol or a breathing method works for everyone, that's probably a sign that you should run in the other direction. Nothing works for everyone because there's so much context and nuance in our physiology. And oftentimes, athletes do things that are maladaptive for them because they're getting information from sources that don't understand those sporting populations, or the research or evidence isn't applicable to them. So that's pretty much my thoughts on nasal breathing at this point.